Today, we will present the other side of the coin and answer the question of many. How far can congressional inquiries go without overstepping the mandate of the judiciary? Live at the BNC studio, lawyer and political commentator, Attorney Ferdinand Topacio. Good morning, Attorney Ferdy.
Yes, good morning, Karen. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining our discussion this morning. And Attorney Ferdy, you've been part of Quakcom hearings as legal counsel. For one with Cassandra Ong during the Quakcom hearing where she also appeared as a resource person.
Yes, I am.
How would you describe the recent investigations or hearings being conducted by Congress?
Well, I would say that not just the recent hearings, but the hearings as a whole from the beginning have been a sort of a roving commission on the part of the House, that four committees of the House, when it comes to legislative inquiries. They have clearly overstepped the bounds of reason, and they have engaged in sheer oppression in so many instances. And this is in contravention of the injunction of our Supreme Court in at least three cases. The case of Ermita, the case of the recent case of Lincoln Ong, you're very familiar with that. And of course, the case of Neri, which categorically stated that legislative inquiries are not investigative proceedings. They cannot take the place of the police, the prosecution, or the courts.
Would you remember, Attorney Ferdy, as to when this whole manner of conducting hearings started? Because it is part of the Constitution that Congress, Senate, they can conduct inquiries in aid of legislation. But in terms of the manner by which it is being conducted now, where it's taken on similar to a role of, as you said, a roving investigation, which the Supreme Court has ruled on in the past as being unconstitutional. But when did this all start?
I think this was premeditated, if I may say so. For one, this is, as far as I know, unprecedented. Four committees of the House investigating a wide range of subjects from POGO to extrajudicial killings. I mean, it's a stretch to see the connection amongst all of the things that they are investigating. But clearly, there is intention, a deliberate intent to target certain political personalities for liquidation, namely, definitely a former President Duterte, which was very evident during the the last session of the Quakcom.
Well, you mentioned earlier that this has turned into some sort of a roving commission, and the manner in which they conduct the hearings has overstepped the bounds of the mandate of the Congress. Let's look at instances during the Quakcom hearing where some members or representatives acted like prosecutors. Let's watch this first clip.
Ang concept niyo talaga patayin agad ang mga kriminal o yung mga addict o yung mga pusher. Pero ang tanong ko nga, hindi nyo ginawa yan sa mga drug lords. Okay? Hindi kayo nang huli ng mga manufacturer ng drugs. Pero yung mga maliliit, ganyan ang tingin ninyo, ano? Yung mga kriminal na sinasabi ninyo. Ganyan niya tratuhin.
Ganon ako gagago?
Excuse me,
Mo,
point of order.
Ganon ako gagago?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Kanina sinabihan na natin na may rule na bawal gumamit ng manaswang salita or hindi magandang salita.
I'm using a word. Ganon, am I that stupid?
Well, as you can see here, it seems that this particular representative and some during their questioning were trying to make former President Duterte admit to certain acts that they were alleging or illegal. But is this frame of questioning proper for a House hearing?
Well, definitely not. Because legislative inquiries cannot take the place, or are they intended to supplant investigations either by the police or the NBI or a pronouncement of guilt or innocence by the court. What the legislature should secure from witnesses or resource persons appearing in these legislative hearings are information, data, in order for them to intelligently formulate pieces of legislation. As in fact, at the last hearing was totally unnecessary because the group of Congressman Dan Fernandez has already filed a proposed bill with respect to EJ case. Well, no matter what we think of the superfluity of that bill, there is already legislation formulated. So why are they still continuing with hearings on the EJK?
And Congressman Rog Gutierrez asked former President Duterte to confirm bits and pieces of Colonel Roina Garma's statement when he was not furnished a copy of the affidavit. Let's watch this clip.
Read the affidavit so that I would not be in a position to correctly really to respond to your question. I am at a loss kasi ikaw yung may hawak ng... So you are now trying to investigate me. Para kang investigador. Yung may hawak ka ng affidavit dyan, executed by another person, and you're trying to confront me with the statements made in that affidavit, and you're trying to exact an answer from me. Pagka ganon, maghinto tayo dito. That is not proper.
Mr.
That
President.
is not fair.
Well, former President Duterte is a lawyer and also formerly a prosecutor. Is he correct in saying that it's not fair to be asked to confirm statements from an affidavit that he has not seen?
Well, I could not have said it any better than the former president. It is not fair not only during legislative inquiries, but in any proceedings because of the principle of due process. I believe that Congressman Rodriguez, is that Rodriguez or Gutierrez?
Gutierrez.
Gutierrez is also a lawyer. But therein lies the difference between, well, we are seasoned veterans, trial veterans, Karen. Our life is appearing before the court. And that is the difference between people who litigate for a living and lawyers who have not seen the inside of a courtroom, like perhaps Congressman Gutierrez, because there are nuances in proceedings that you cannot acquire by just studying law and reading law books. So, kaya nga nasopla siya tuloy ni President Duterte.
But since this is a congressional inquiry, is that allowed in the rules?
Nonetheless, because it doesn't matter. Of course, in legislative inquiries, the rules of evidence are relaxed. The rules of evidence only apply in a suppletory capacity. But nonetheless, in the Constitution, it is stated very clearly that all the rights in the Constitution must be accorded to a resource person. And that includes the right to remain silent, the right to be protected from incriminatory questions, the right to due process, and the right to be presumed innocent. And these are the very rights that are being violated by our lawmakers, the very same people who, in their oaths of office, swore to uphold the Constitution and all the laws of the Philippines.
And let's talk about substance. So Congresswoman Jinky Beatrix Luistro stated that former President Duterte was guilty of conspiracy by inducing others to commit crime. Let's watch this clip.
Challenging anybody or everybody who makes the accusation, whether it is really true or not, it may be true, file the case in court because may korte tayo. And even if I will admit na totoo yan, you have to go to court because I will make the admission there again.
So when a member of Congress in a hearing in aid of legislation accuses a person of being guilty of a crime, is that within the bounds of their function
Definitely not. Karen, Luis Cho is that kind of person that, she's a lawyer also, as we all know. But, Luis Cho is that kind of person that if you're not very smart, you will think that she's smart. But if you're smart, you know that she's not. Because even in her questioning regarding the supposed extrajudicial admission of President Duterte, not only in pronouncing the guilt of Mr. Duterte in legislative proceedings, but when she says that the admissions made in a legislative proceeding by the former president amount to an extrajudicial confession.
Yes,
She is
yeah.
wrong because, of course, some of the elements are there. Voluntariness, sound mind, the awareness of the consequences of the admission, but there is one essential factor missing that all we trial lawyers know. That is that the extrajudicial confession, to be effective, must be made within the context of custodial investigation. And we were taught in first-year law that a custodial investigation starts when a general inquiry regarding the commission of a crime starts to focus on a particular person. A legislative hearing cannot be custodial investigation because the parameters are limited in a legislative inquiry. As the Supreme Court said, and I again repeat, for the edification of our congressmen, of our members of the House, the legislature is not a court, it is not a police agency, it is not a prosecution office, it does not investigate the commission of a crime. The sole purpose of a legislative inquiry, a hearing in aid of legislation, is to ferret out facts and information and not to determine the guilt or innocence of anyone, nor even the existence of a crime or the commission thereof. That is not the place of the House of Representatives nor of the Senate.
Well, I guess a lot of people will say, paano kung guilty talaga yung person that is appearing before Congress or Senate? What would be the proper procedure when you do have someone, for example, appearing and that person is guilty of certain offenses?
Well, for one, people should again be reminded of the constitutional injunction of the presumption of innocence. Number two, as President Duterte so very aptly said during the hearings, file it in court. Kaya nga may korte tayo. We have a court to determine the guilt or innocence of a person with respect to the commission of a crime. We have a legislature that makes the laws. We have an executive that executes and implements the law. That is the genius of a tripartite system of government that we have under the Constitution. And anything that the legislature does that impinges on the prerogatives of the judiciary dilutes that separation of powers.